1993 440 Bobcat. So it's a 440B Bobcat. Put a Predator engine. I've been making videos on this, and this specific video is about the starting issues that I had with this Predator. When I would spray starting fluid into the filter, on the filter or any area where it could reach into the carburetor, I could get it to start up. Sometimes I was lucky and it would start up for 15 seconds, 20 seconds, and that 20 seconds is a long time. It would die out. Then it would give me a hard start. So I went ahead and took the carburetor off, which you'll see in one of my videos. Go ahead and watch that. And it shows me not rebuilding it, but thoroughly cleaning it. And it also showed me removing the caps so you can adjust your jets. So it shows that. Also, on the same night that I done the carburetor, I also went ahead and decided to rebuild the fuel pump. And I rebuilt it because it had screws on it that you could unscrew and open up the fuel pump. In the process of this, I gave it a thorough clean and I put it all back together. In the beginning, of course, this is the fuel line, the circle. The fuel line goes down into the top of the fuel pump. And then we have our fuel line that gives it to us. It actually feeds the carburetor, so it comes around and the carburetor plugs onto, when it comes to the carburetor here. But we're going to get to this in a minute. I don't have it on there now. On the top, on the inside part, the part that I'm tapping with my finger, it comes around and it attaches to this big giant filter. This does not go to the carburetor. This goes to the engine down there. So if you were to spray starting fluid in here or pour gasoline, it's only going to go into your engine block. And this is a vacuum line. So it's either a vacuum or a push, but I believe it is a vacuum. I should have tested for the PSI suction. I didn't, but that's what it is. When it sucks, it manipulates the diaphragm, which then this hose sucks gas. It pushes, so it sucks down. Because your tank is not gravity fed, this line don't go into the tank in here. It actually goes behind the wall, goes up, and it dives into the fuel tank. So that's not gravity fed. It has to suck gasoline up around the curve and then down. Now if I poke a hole in the gas tank right here, the gas tank is higher than the engine. That means the fluid just will flow, and that's called gravity fed. Well, if it was gravity fed, you wouldn't need a fuel pump. But so this goes in and it goes up, over, and into the gas tank. So it needs a pump. How I determined that I needed a fuel pump, after I thought it was the carburetor and I rebuilt it, is I went ahead and got me a drip line, which it looks like a casing that you would urinate in or of some sort. Hook a hose, and what this is this shuts off. It controls the flow of the drip line. So this shuts it off, and it steadily allows the flow. And then if you line it with the hose, that means it's open. The gasoline comes down, and you could actually see the drip area. It looks like an IV drip. The gasoline comes through the tube, and I ran the tube straight to the carburetor. I cranked it. Sure enough, it started. It ran, it was a wonderful thing. I actually got to move the skid steer forward, backwards, lift the bucket up and down. It was an exciting moment. But I really needed to get this fixed. Okay. So forget about this gas line. I'm just going to leave that on there. How did I know this fuel pump was bad? Considering that I hooked up this gas line and then it was running. Well, there is a brass fitting on the inside. It's a little circle. Let's see if you could see it. And I cannot. But we will see it on the new fuel pump. Anyways, it was leaking gasoline from it. And that's how I determined the fuel pump was bad. If you're cleaning out the fuel pump and using carburetor cleaner, you might be tempted to stick some carburetor cleaner in here. And you might even have a compressor, a blower that blows dust and debris, and you might want to blow things. If you stick that compressor blower into one of these hoses, it doesn't matter which one, you're going to destroy the diaphragm inside of there. So do not blow inside of any of these inlets and outlets on the fuel pump. Okay. Don't do it on the carburetor either unless the carburetor's apart. Otherwise, you can mess up the floater and the jets. Now that we went over this, I wanted to know if I could stick a fuel pump on here. You know, electrical one, run some wiring. Of course, an off and on switch. Now, if you're going to put a fuel pump on here, you must remember that the fuel pump must have very low pressure. If it's a powerful fuel pump, it's going to push fuel fast right into your carburetor, and it's going to go to the fuel bowl. Remember when in your toilet bowl in your bathroom, when you flush the toilet and the water fills up, there's a black bulb that kind of lifts up, and when it gets a certain height, it stops the water from filling the toilet. Well, the toilet bowl is the exact, how can I say? It is like a replica in the carburetor. And when the gasoline fills up in the fuel bowl, which is on the bottom, there's a floater, and it stops the fuel from overfilling the fuel bowl, allowing gas to be siphoned up properly. Now that if you were to put a electric fuel pump on this, even at low PSI, and I don't care if you have a screw to adjust it, to bring the PSI down or whatnot, you're gonna have problems. The problems is that pressure, that fuel line, even though it doesn't flow fast, it may be flowing very slow, but it's electric, so it's gonna keep pumping. It's gonna build up pressure. Now, fast flowing gas fills up pressure fast. Slow filling gas still builds up the pressure, but it builds it up slowly. No matter what, it's still pressure, called PSI. And it's gonna, the bowl, that the floater that's in there, it's gonna bypass it and practically hurt it. Now, I took this apart, and you can see why now. If you build carburetors, you already know what I'm talking about. And if this is, you're just doing research about putting an electric fuel pump on one of these motors, this will probably save you a world of hurt. So I needed to order a fuel pump. Now, I got some news on you on the fuel pump. When you order a fuel pump and you go on eBay, if you go on Google, if you go on Walmart, I don't care where you go, do not buy a cheap fuel pump. I repeat this, okay? Do not buy a cheap fuel pump. Even if the fuel pump came with a fuel filter, they'll say, buy a fuel pump and a fuel filter. Come together, and they're like $10. Don't do it. Now, you might even get, this is the box that I got with the fuel pump. So look, I got it free. That's the box it comes in. It's real small. There's my brand new fuel filter. And an additional, here's the fuel pump. There it is. There is that brass circle that I was talking about. So if I was to take this and place it in here, the same way this is filled. Notice this is facing up, and that's where the line would plug. See that little circle, that brass piece? There's a brass piece on this one. Now, you're gonna see three styles of fuel pump. You're gonna see one that's made of metal. You're gonna see one that's made of plastic. And then you're gonna see one that's made of plastic that has 4 screws on it. And you're thinking, wow, if it has screws, apparently you could take it apart, rebuild it. This must be the better version than a sealed one that does not have screws on it and it's just sealed together, factory press, glued, whatever. These screws don't mean a damn thing. I'm not kidding you. And you should have a fill filter before the gas goes in your fuel pump. You should have that anyway, so debris would not go in here. Well, this looks like it's a reasonable fuel pump, am I right? Has 4 screws on it. Looks nice. It came with a free filter. This thing was $10. I got it from Walmart. I ordered it through Walmart for $10. It said that it would take up to 14 days to get to me. It actually came in 4 days. So I'm really, Walmart, thank you very much for that time frame. That was really helpful. Okay, now, do not buy a cheap fuel pump. I mean a fuel filter. It's both. You could buy a cheap fuel filter, but I mean a cheap fuel pump. Buy the original fuel pump, the original expensive fuel pump that would not come on a Predator engine, but would come on a Kohler engine, Kohler, Kohler, because Kohler engines, I believe, are the original engines that come in this skid steer. Well, the Kohler engine actually, and if I'm wrong, it's the Kohler fuel pump anyways, is the right fuel pump. Please buy the fuel pump that is meant for this. It's going to cost you $24. Pay the price, because this is not even the first fuel pump. These, you might get lucky if yours works, but I'm sorry to say I couldn't even sell this to somebody. I felt like I would be cheating them, even though I wiped it down and it's cleaned up and put it back in the baggie. They don't work. So now I'm out $10 and I can't send it back. It smells like gas in there. You pop these little heads off. It smells like gas in there. You could dump some out, but it looks brand new still. But I'm just gonna throw it. Well, actually, I won't throw it in the trash. I just leave it for video purposes. So do not buy a cheap fuel pump, and just because it comes with a fuel filter, it doesn't mean it's a good deal. You do not buy a cheap fuel pump on this. Buy the right fuel pump, and you'll have better results. Speaking of that, I kept cranking the motor, and eventually I killed the battery. And the battery that I had in here looked like it came out of a snowmobile or oversized lawnmower. I just decided to go to Walmart. If you look on Walmart's page, it says that the battery is $47 for this battery. And we are in 2022. I believe we're in the month of June. Of course we are. And so for $47, that was a good price. I should have just did it with the credit card and then went to Home Depot to pick it up. But when I went, I decided they have the battery in there, just go and buy it. Turned out it was like $56, $57, so it was an additional $10 plus a core charge. Core charges aren't expensive no more. They're just a $10 additional. So you have to bring a battery as a core charge, and you don't need to bring the original battery, but you could bring any battery. Any battery is considered a core charge. And what I did is I bought a car battery. So this is actually a car battery. This ain't the original battery that goes in the skid steer, and it fits. Let's look at that size. That's what I have. So it fits in there, and it's a car battery, and Well, let's see how that works, which I already know is good. Hey, I didn't know, I put the muffler on. I didn't know where to drill the holes on the door for the muffler, because you got to close the door. This muffler comes out and it's supposed to curve into this, so I figure in the future I'll cut a hole on the top and combine the muffler. The funny thing about it is when I started this engine and I was with this fuel line, I was so excited to move it back and forth that the door swang closed, and when it did, you're not gonna believe it. For all those times that I was trying to crank the engine, all that carbon buildup and whatever, the door swang shut, and it shut on the muffler pipe, which then caused a smoke ring. So now I don't have to go through all this trouble to determine where to cut the hole. It actually left the smoke ring there for me. That's kind of neat. So if you start your engine up and you don't know where to put the circle at, start the engine first, rev it, and then close the door on the engine. And maybe you'll have the same results I have. So now I know where to cut the circle to fit the muffler pipe out. All right, I'm awaiting the right fuel pump, and I'll put it in. I should have already had this thing rolling, but it's been a really cool project, and I hope this helps you out. Remember what I said about the fuel pump. Do not buy cheap just because it comes even 2 for $10, 2 for 15. Don't fall for a deal. Don't go for the deal. Buy the proper fuel pump. And if you are going to do electrical fuel pump, you're definitely going to want to do more research, more than I have, and figured out how you could run one in there without the fuel pump destroying your fuel bowl. I hope this helps you out. I am not going electrical on this. I'm going to use the right fuel pump in. So my next video, hopefully you see me doing donuts in this. This has been a really interesting build. Be safe in all you do.